He is Jinwoo, who is considered the weakest, ugliest, dumbest of a hunter in the world. But after almost dying in a dungeon, he gains the unique ability to level up, which allows him to become the strongest. And because of that, he starts looking less ugly, making him go from zero to hero in no time. But how does all this happen? Let's find out. On a remote island, a band of fearless hunters finds themselves in a sticky situation with giant monster ants. Their leader, bold as ever, gets right up in the face of one of these monstrous bugs, rallying the team with a speech about how they've got to stand their ground and fight. Retreat? Not an option. This gang of hunters is getting absolutely clapped by these giant insects, and their boss is on the brink of passing out. I mean, one of these ants is literally having a snack on his insides. He might be thinking not a great day at the office, but out of nowhere, this dude with healing powers swoops in and saves the day. This dude busts out some insane healing magic that totally blows the leader's mind. The leader tries to warn the healer, as he almost got clapped, but he got bailed out super quick. The hero who rescued him then signals to his buddy to follow up on his attack. The next guy on the team is a total monster whacking machine. The first group suddenly realizes they've been side characters in this anime the whole time, and they're staring in awe as it hits them. These rescuers are the Avengers of monster slaying, the cream of the crop. They mop up the red ants without breaking a sweat, but then, boom, a jumbo-sized albino ant shows up like the final boss in a video game. The team decides, alright, let's take on the big boss while the healer patches up the bruises. These tough cookies jump into action, working together like a well-oiled machine to tear off the albino ant's creepy face arms, turning it into ant paste. But there's no time for a victory dance. The albino ant army shows up like they got the wrong address for the picnic. Turns out, that big tough ant was just the tip of the iceberg, but these hunters fear nothing. The wizard guy charges up his lightning, and the musclehead goes all Hulk mode, ripping his clothes to shreds with his bulging muscles. From the city, people can see their battle raging on. One man, Mr. Choi, is relieved they arrived in the nick of time. Mr. Choi is dealing with a major ant situation in the city, so he's blasting them with flames, turning them into grayscale critters. Luckily, he's got his team of bug busters ready for action. But how all this started, a decade back, these mysterious gates popped up worldwide, spewing out monsters like it's a monster party. Regular weapons didn't do any damages against them, so humanity was in a pickle. Then, some folks woke up with superpowers, became the hunters, and save the day. They're ranked based on how awesome they are. But here's the kicker. Once their powers show up, they're stuck at that level forever. Just like Yunfei's sister who got stuck in the washing machine. The only way they can amp up their strength is by upgrading their gear. Then we see a hunter named Kim, minding his business, when Park strolls up, revealing that he's gotta dive into dungeons cause he's got a baby on the way because of the football game he played with his wife, and he needs cash. Then, this ugly lonely, up kid Jinwoo shows up, and everyone's greet him. Park's wondering if Jinwoo's a big deal, but turns out he's an E-rank hunter. The weakest, ugliest, loneliest, sturdiest, cause the way he got clapped in the easiest dungeon. Let's not talk about that. They're trying to keep the Jinwoo's a weakling chat on the down low, but guess what? Jinwoo's got ears like a bat, and hears everything. Then comes Juhee with her massive cannons, the wannabe girlfriend, but a bitch, asking what's up with Jinwoo's ugly face. He explains he got in an E-rank dungeon cause, believe it or not, they didn't have a healer on their team. Because his buddies were so tough, they figured they didn't even need one. Juhee's not impressed, calling them selfish, but Jinwoo blames himself for being weak, saying I'm practically a pro at getting clapped. The leader, Song-chi, gathers everyone for a meeting. They're all stoked cause this guy's a top-notch hunter. As they're gearing up to enter the gate, Kim gives Jinwoo a warning to save his banged-up ass, worried he might get clapped again. Turns out, Jinwoo's wielding a basic knife cause that's all he can afford, because he is poor as but he's determined to rock this mission. So, with a determined spirit, he dives into the gate. In another part of town, we meet Chairman Gunhee, also known as the Grandpa, explaining that hunters cash in big time by selling essence stones, which they snag from whacking monsters. These stones are like treasure cause they're used to make top-notch powerful gear. And there are mana crystals too, kinda like the same but not as awesome. The government's eyeing these stones and crystals as the next big thing for power cause they're crazy efficient and won't make the air all gross. Back to Jinwoo's clapping adventure. He scores his first essence stone, but then a goblin decides to crash the party. Jinwoo is ready for dance, but his trusty knife decides to fail just like my relationship with my girlfriend and shatters like my heart, leaving him with a penetrated stab just like my girlfriend got penetrated by my friend.
What did he say?
Good old Park steps in and slays the goblin. while Juhi patches Jinwoo up and watches as their friend clap the monster. They kick the dungeon boss's butt, and it's party time, but Juhi's scratching her head, wondering why Jinwoo's still in the hunter game, saying she's worried about him because he always gets clapped. They gather up the loot, but it's a bit underwhelming. Just when they're feeling bummed, another hunter pops up and reveals a secret tunnel. Excitement's brewing because it's a double dungeon, meaning double the loot. But then, Songchi lays down the law. They can't explore it yet cause they gotta wait for the Hunters Association to give the thumbs up. Kim suggests breaking the rules to grab that loot, but Songchi's not having it, suggesting they take a vote. Half the gang, including Juhi, says no to the dungeon. Now, here comes the twist. Ugly Jinwoo hasn't voted yet, and he's the tiebreaker. He knows his decision could be life or death. On one hand, he's thinking he could end up kicking the bucket. But on the other hand, reality hits him hard. His dad's a goner with a maid because he doesn't want to look at his ugly face. Mom's in the hospital, and his sis is still in school. Who's gonna bring home the bacon? So, with a gulp, he says, "Let's f*** Johi." Alright, let's go inside Johi's tunnel.
Hey yo, what the f***?
Let's go to the double dungeon. Meanwhile, officials are putting the new hunters through their paces to rank them. We meet Guild Master Choi, the big boss of the Hunter Guild, telling his peeps to scout out the promising rookies cause they need more folks in their guild. Then we see thieves stealing a bag, and they're about to flee, but a girl swoops in like a superhero to grab the bag back, and causing thieves to crash inside her.
What do you mean by that?
Causing thieves to crash. She hands the bag back to the owner. The crowd recognizes her as the S-rank Hunter Cha, but this girl's not into the whole fame thing, so she ninja jumps off buildings to make her getaway. Back in the dungeon, the gang venturing through this mysterious tunnel as Juhi's digging into Jinwoo's choice, bringing up the time he was on death's doorstep. Jinwoo's feeling grateful cause she saved his bacon, and out of nowhere, she suggests, "How about you thank me by giving me the long hard dinner party," causing him to become a flustered mess just like a little bitch. Right then, they spot a door and figure, this must be where the big boss is hiding. Back in the city, a bunch of hunters are in this orientation thing, watching a video by Grandpa. He explains that this portal's been around for a decade, and the dungeon's still full of secrets. Being a hunter is a risky business. Even the pros gotta stay sharp during a raid. No room for cockiness here. The golden rule? Cautiousness. In the dungeon, we've got this group of goofballs who clearly missed the memo. They're strolling right into this mysterious, super sketchy room like it's a picnic spot. Inside, they find a bunch of statues, and Jinwoo spots one that's massive compared to the others. Everyone's scratching their heads wondering where the monsters are. They stumble upon an old tablet with some serious temple rules, and Songchi reads it, revealing that it's telling them to worship God, show some faith in God, and prove their faith to him, or they won't be able to leave the room alive. But Juhi notices the giant statues looking at her milkers, and suddenly the door slams shut, sending everyone into a panic zone. One hunter says we made a mistake, and tries to bail, but a statue attacks him, ending him in an instant. Everyone falls into despair, wondering how they're supposed to escape. Jinwoo finds it odd that the statues seem too powerful for a D-rank dungeon. As he gazes at the massive statue, he notices it's observing his butt. Memories flood in of his near-death experiences on raids, where he struggled to match other hunters' skills. Despite this, he never threw the towel, using his keen observation skills to make up for his shortcomings. He senses trouble brewing, so he tells everyone to take cover. Suddenly, the statue shoots this crazy energy beam, obliterating everything in sight. The team's jaws hit the floor, and Juhi's shaking like a leaf. Jinwoo's scratching his head, wondering how they got into this mess. Stuck with no escape, he thinks, well, this is how I die, I guess. Panic mode kicks in, and Songchi warns everyone not to move or not to masturbate.
You don't find that suspicious?
Otherwise, they get zapped again. He approaches Jinwoo, wondering how he, the loser, the pussy, was able to sense the danger. Jinwoo explains that it was just a gut feeling, and Songchi asks whose meat are you eating to have that type of gut feeling, and Jinwoo says, but then, he notices Songchi's missing an arm, and he tells Jinwoo to help him stop the bleeding. So, he whips out some bandages, mentioning he was gonna ask Juhi for help, but she's a pro at freaking out under pressure. No wonder she sticks to the easy gigs despite being a B-rank healer, as she can handle the big, wide, long, hard danger. Song-chi explains that he's been to B-rank dungeons, but this statue's a whole new level, thinking it belongs to an S-rank dungeon. He recalls the commandments written on the tablet, and Jinwoo thinks that the huge statue is God. Song-chi's got that sinking feeling they're like kittens against a lion. Time to hatch an escape plan. At school, Jinwoo's sister spills the tea about her brother always getting clapped. The girl she tells can't believe that ugly loser Jinwoo is a hunter, and she claims she can beat his
What?
I mean, she can beat him like a pro. Back in the dungeon, Song-chi's racking his brain for an escape plan. However, another hunter expresses his fear of dying and impulsively charges forward at a reckless speed. The statue immediately strikes back, instantly destroying him. I think he forgot to put his Crocs on sports mode. Observing this, Jinwoo realizes the statue could easily kill them all if it chooses to. He recalls the inscription on the tablet and asks Song-chi about it. Song-chi mentions that the first commandment is to worship God. Jinwoo stands up in defiance of the dungeon's apparent rules, despite Song-chi's attempts to intervene out of concern for his safety. However, Song-chi realizes Jinwoo's determination to survive. As the statue of God prepares to strike, Jinwoo humbly bows his head, hoping to escape harm, and the statue claps Jinwoo from behind. He advises everyone to do the same, assuring them it might spare their asses if they show submission. Reluctantly, they all comply, and the statue's eyes dim, but it surprises them by flashing a grin. Park reassures them that it's harmless. But their relief is short-lived, because the clapping is now going to start, as the statue begins to move closer, sending them into a frenzy. Jinwoo reminds the group of the second commandment, to praise God. A brave soul steps up, thinking he's got this, and starts chanting a prayer. But all the statue does is grin, clearly not impressed. Sadly, the poor guy gets squashed flat to death, prompting panic as everyone flees with the statue in pursuit. Park, thinking of his loved ones waiting for him, decides to take a stand. He walks up to one of the statues, ready to face whatever comes his way. But the statue slices him in half. Jinwoo's on high alert, noticing that the armed statues are the ones causing harm, while the ones with instruments must be harmless. He directs everyone to approach these musical statues. Taking Jinwoo's lead, they activate the musical statues, breathing a sigh of relief as they realize they're safe for now. Jinwoo, with Juhi by his side, goes to one statue but it's still snoozing. He figures it won't budge with two people around, so he instructs Juhi to stay put while he rushes to activate the last one. He dashes off to activate the last statue, but the big statue god's on his tail. It's a close call as he narrowly avoids getting squashed. In the chaos, he accidentally sets off another statue, and it attacks him, smashing the ground, and Juhi thinks he's dead, but we see him crawling to the last one, refusing to give up as the statue of God continues to pursue him. The big statue decides to do a little dance on Jinwoo, but luckily, the last statue starts belting out a tune. Turns out, Jinwoo managed to activate it, so the big boss statue, feeling a bit groovy, goes back to its throne, letting Jinwoo off the hook, and he realizes the second commandment is complete. Juhi approaches him, but she realizes that his one leg is missing. She tries to work her healing magic, but it seems she's hit her limit. Now, everyone's looking around, realizing their crewmates didn't make it. Kim's pointing fingers at Song-chi, blaming him for the mess because, you know, leader stuff. But the others think Kim's being a bit harsh, considering he's the one who suggested the rule-breaking plan in the first place. They start blaming each other, but Song-chi takes responsibility because he made the final decision. Suddenly, an altar pops up out of nowhere, and Jinwoo explains the third commandment. They must show their big, long, hard faith to God. He thinks they need to offer up a sacrifice to survive. Kim suggests Song-chi should sacrifice himself since he's the leader, and Song-chi agrees. He goes towards the altar, but then fire appears, confusing everyone. Jinwoo asks them to help him get closer to the altar so he can investigate. As they move closer, more flames appear. Jinwoo wonders if anyone will rescue them, and Song-chi keeps pressing Jinwoo for answers, though he hasn't figured anything out yet. Song-chi drops some knowledge bombs, mentioning the gate's been open for a week. That means those statues could start up their disco dance again at any moment. Jinwoo recalls how it takes a whole week for a gate to fully open. They call it the dungeon break. And if they don't defeat the boss and close that gate soon, well, they're in for a giant-sized party crasher in their world. Back in the real world, Gina, the stepsister of Jinwoo, pays a visit to Jinwoo's mom, trying to have a nice chat. But oh boy, his mom's not doing so great. In the dungeon, Jinwoo tells everyone to approach the altar. As they approach, more flames burst out, creating a ring of blue fire around it. Suddenly, The door swings open, raising hopes of escape. However, the statues start moving when a blue flame disappears. Panic sets in, but Jinwoo notices that the statues freeze when he looks at them with their lustful eyes. He instructs everyone to keep their lustful eyes open so the statues can move. Surprisingly, it seems to work, until one person loses their cool and bolts, causing a red flame to poof out. She manages to leave the room, and everyone is puzzled because the commandment is to prove their faith. Jinwoo's smelling a trap, but it is my fart that Jinwoo is smelling. But another person follows suit and runs off. He warns that they'll have blind spots if more leave. He figures those blue flames are a countdown, and they gotta survive until they vanish. However, Kim points out that Jinwoo's theory isn't proven. Kim appreciates Jinwoo's help but mentions his sexy wife and sexy daughter are waiting for him and decides to run away. Jinwoo figures out they can hold off all the statues, so Song-chi tells Joo-hee and Jinwoo to escape, but Joo-hee can't move because she's used up all her juice. Jinwoo tells Song-chi to take her and go, explaining he can't run with only one leg. He gives Joo-hee an essence stone, telling her to use it at night to satisfy herself by buying dinner. Reluctant to leave Jinwoo, Joo-hee protests, but Song-chi knocks her out and carries her away. Now Jinwoo's solo, facing off against statues with bad intentions. He grabs a sword, planning to fight to the end. The statues attack, overwhelming Jinwoo. He loses an arm and suffers a severe beating, landing on the altar with a statue ready to strike him down. Realizing his dire situation, he starts to cry, not wanting to die. Then, the timer runs out. A notification appears, revealing a secret quest called Courage of Small Boy.
Stop it. Get some help.
Courage of the Week has been completed. It offers qualifications to be a player and asks for acceptance. If not accepted, the player's heart will stop instantly, and the yes button is pressed. Suddenly, he wakes up in a hospital, realizing his body's back in tip-top shape. He wonders if it was all just a dream until Jinchul, the manager from the Hunter Association, walks in. Jinchul explains he's been snoozing for 3 days straight, and Jinwoo wonders what happened to his Joo-hee and Song-chi. Jinchul spills the beans, they're alive, but Song-chi's down an arm and might retire. And Joo-hee needs mental care before joining another raid. The White Tiger Guild showed up to the dungeon after hearing from the survivors, but they didn't see any statues. Jinwoo was just found lying there like garbage. The survivor's story checks out since other hunters' remains were found, so they suspect that he gained new power after a second awakening. But when Jinchul checks his magic with a gadget, it's shockingly low at 10, embarrassing Jinwoo. This is seen as really bad because even the weakest hunters usually score around 70. Jinchul explains that they were mistaken, and they leave the room thinking he's as weak as a fucking civilian. Jinwoo is bummed out by his measly magic score, wondering why no one noticed the floating screen in his room. He thought it was pretty obvious. Then his sister Gina shows up, all worried about him, and drops the bombshell that she's quitting school to start an OnlyFans so he can quit the hunter life, since he's always ending up in the hospital. He apologizes for stressing her out, then tries to explain the screen, but she's just confused cause she can't see it. He asks her how she checks messages in video games, and she tells him that he just needs to open the message box and the system recognizes his command, informing him that he has a daily quest. He reflects on becoming a player, and Gina allows him to rest as he reads his notifications, realizing the system is there to assist him, but he will receive penalties if he doesn't follow through. He accepts the daily quest, a simple workout routine. Knowing he'll be penalized if he fails. He doubts he can complete it in the hospital and decides to take a nap. Meanwhile, Jinchul reports to Grandpa, explaining that Jinwoo didn't have a second awakening. Grandpa sees the case as full of mysteries, realizing they have much to learn about dungeons. They decide to classify it as a special case needing more investigation. In another place, Choi tells Cha to lead a B-rank raid as a training exercise for newbies. She doubts if she can handle so many people at a single time, but Choi insists she just needs to suck the life out of monsters during the fight, and the recruits will learn by watching her big juicy melons. Recruits will learn by watching her. Choi mentions that they have a big and strong hunters guild locally, but globally, they're a small dick. He figures they can't change their rank, but they can definitely level up their combat skills. Meanwhile, another gate opens up, and everyone's eagerly waiting for the hunters. Back at the hospital, Jinwoo's snoozing, but oops, he dozed off and failed his quest. Suddenly, He's teleported to a desert, and the system tells him to survive for 4 hours. Jinwoo's pretty confused, wondering if it's all a dream, until he meets a giant centipede. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, the nurses are scratching their ugly butt and wondering where the ugly-looking guy Jinwoo went. Little do they know, he's in some other dimension, dodging giant bugs. He's freaking out as more centipedes show up, and he's running like crazy, but eventually, he's totally wiped out. Just when he's about to become bug food, the timer hits 0, and he's back in the hospital. The system says he finished the penalty quest. However, poor Jinwoo collapses right then and there, and the nurses come in, wondering what the is going on. Meanwhile, Juhee gets an invite for a D-rank raid but declines because she's still not feeling well. She hears Jinwoo is in the hospital and awake from his coma, so she decides to visit. However, in the hospital she overhears the nurses gossiping about him, thinking he's gone bonkers cause he's already training hard, like non-stop. Jinwoo takes a break, and we find out that after completing a daily quest, he gets 3 kinds of rewards. First, full recovery, which he uses now to get rid of his exhaustion from running. Next, he gets ability points to beef up whatever skill he wants. He dumps some into strength and bam, instantly more buff. But he feels weird because he feels like he's playing a video game. Meanwhile, while he's all screen scrolling, he doesn't realize that everyone's watching him like he's an alien. Back in his room, he explains that when he finishes a daily quest, he gets a random loot box. He opens it up, causing a key to appear, and the system mentions he can use it for an instance dungeon in a subway. He's confused, but he figures this key is like a VIP pass to get stronger, so off he goes. Later, Jinwoo swings by the hospital to visit his mom, and we flash back to 4 years ago when she suddenly falls ill. Turns out she's got this rare eternal sleep disease caused by all this mana exposure from the gates. Docs say it's unfixable, so she's on life support. To make money, Jinwoo works at a construction site, but suddenly, he awakens his powers and becomes eligible to work as a hunter. Excited about a change in his life, but he realizes he's too weak that he can't even defeat a goblin. Other hunters look down on him, seeing him as an ugly, lonely loser of a burden. Back to the present, Jinwoo's pumping iron, getting stronger. He heads to the subway with his trusty key and unlocks the instance dungeon. He deciding to enter, he thinks he can escape if it gets too dangerous. But the exit's slammed shut, and the system says he must defeat the boss or use a teleportation stone to leave. Jinwoo's not sure he's ready for this solo mission, but decides to explore the dungeon. Suddenly, 3 goblins appear. They're speedy little buggers, and he's struggling to keep up. He falls when one goblin tries to stab him, but he dodges and launches a counterattack and kills the goblin in one blow. Out of the blue, a big bad wolf shows up and goes full beast mode on Jinwoo, breaking his knife like it's made of toothpicks. He realizes that it's stronger than the goblins, and his legs start trembling as he realizes that he's afraid. The wolf comes at him, claws out, and manages to land a scratch him as he notes that he has no healer, so he's going to die if he suffers a fatal injury. He dodges the wolf's attacks, feeling surprisingly light on his feet. Overcoming his fear, with a mighty punch, he floors the wolf, realizing that focusing on strength really packs a punch. However, the wolf isn't down for the count. It's back on its paws in a flash, ready to bounce. Trying to block with his fist, he's surprised to find his attacks are effective. When it becomes too much, he decides to make a run for it since he's weaponless. Just when he's about to become wolf dinner, a light bulb goes off in his head. He remembers something in his inventory. With a swift move, he whips out a magic sword and cuts the wolf in 2. He wonders why he has the sword in his inventory because he knows that it belongs to Kim, and it's too expensive for his ugly ass to afford. But he decides not to think about it, and he notes that his wounds have healed. However, 2 more wolves crash the party. Panic mode sets in as his sword gets stuck in the ground, and Jinwoo starts to panic. But as the wolves approach him, with a heroic effort, he frees it and takes a swing. First wolf catches the blade, so he delivers a swift kick, making it loosen its grip. With a final slice, he decapitates the wolf, leaving the other to hightail it out of there, probably to rethink its life choices. Taking a breather, Jinwoo notices he's leveled up to level 2, and he notes that he never leveled up by completing quests. So, he realizes that actual combat allows him to gain experience. Seeing his stats increase, he figures it's more efficient to get stronger by leveling up, because he gets 5 points per level compared to the 3 from daily quests. But Jinwoo, after defeating 5 monsters, reminds himself not to get carried away. He checks for magic gems but finds an item instead. The system notifies him that he's found a shop, so he attempts to buy something, only to realize his level is too low for any purchases. He decides to sell the item instead. He earns 20 gold, wondering if it's worth much in cash, considering he's in an E-rank dungeon. Feeling lost in the dungeon maze, Jinwoo wonders where the he'll find the teleportation stone. He isn't strong enough to defeat the boss. However, the wolf comes back with his gang to gangbang the shit out of Jinwoo, and he thinks they're just a furry XP boost. He charges in swinging his blade, dispatching them as they surround him. Unfazed, he defeats them all, allowing him to level up. As Jinwoo notices his sword is close to breaking, he acknowledges that weapons are replaceable, and he's glad that the fight is over. Checking his loot, he finds the teleportation stone he needed all along but decides to remain in the dungeon to defeat more monsters and grow stronger, fearing they might disappear if he teleports away. Meanwhile, Juhi receives a call from the Hunter Association about a nearby dungeon break. Due to a shortage of healers, they request her assistance, feeling guilty for declining to help earlier, especially after seeing Jinwoo's hard cock.
What did he say?
I mean work. She decides to join the mission. On the other side, Jinwoo delves deeper into the dungeon, effortlessly dispatching monsters along the way. He's noticed that his battles are becoming easier, understanding that a monster's strength can be determined by the color of its name. White-named monsters are weaker, while red-named ones are stronger. He's making progress, as the wolves that used to have red names now show white. Sensing the boss approaching, he's unsure of his ability to defeat it but decides to confront it anyway. He reaches his second home, a gutter, and suddenly, a creature zooms at him like it's late for monster school. He tries to block but he gets knocked back, and he realizes that his sword is broken. A massive serpent slithers into view, its name glowing orange indicating it's on par with Jinwoo's level. He realizes his sword is ineffective against its scales-covered body. The serpent attacks and Jinwoo barely evades, but he wonders how he can defeat it. The serpent begins chasing Jinwoo, who tries his best to dodge its attacks. Despite his efforts, he gets struck by its tail, sending him flying. As he's blown away by the serpent's attack, Jinwoo finds himself in the path of an oncoming train. He quickly dashes out of the way, narrowly avoiding a collision. Feeling his inadequacy, he reflects on his status as the weakest hunter, determined to become stronger. Jinwoo realizes he's still not strong enough. He wonders how much harder he needs to work to break free from a life filled with constant ridicule. As Jinwoo fights the serpent, he remembers being called the weakest hunter, which fuels his determination to get stronger. He charges at the serpent, dodging its attacks and stabbing its scales with his sword. When the serpent tries to strike back, he evades its blows. Then, as it tries to devour him, he disappears, clinging to its body. Jinwoo, using his strength, crushes those scales, making the serpent scream like a little bitch. In retaliation, the serpent smashes him against a pillar, but Jinwoo holds on tightly. With all his might, he presses down on the serpent's neck, making it bleed. The serpent weakens, eventually succumbing to Jinwoo's relentless assault, as the system declares his victory. After defeating the boss serpent, Jinwoo receives a powerful dagger as a reward along with a vial of the serpent venom. He finds the effects terrifying, as the venom permanently reduces strength of his opponent and increases his defense. After defeating the serpent boss, Jinwoo exits the subway and notices the dungeon has returned to normal, wondering about the whereabouts of everyone. Then, a soldier pops up, all serious-like, telling him that civilians aren't allowed, so go f*** yourself. But as soon as he spots Jinwoo's big long sword, he be like, oh my bad. Hunter dude, let me escort you. Turns out the city's a mess from a dungeon breakout, but it's mostly sorted, except for one thing. A massive golem stomping on hunters. These Puri rankers are throwing everything at it, but the golem's defense is off the charts, with civilians watching from a distance. The hunters are struggling against the golem's formidable defense, finding that even their strongest attacks are ineffective. Jinwoo arrives on the scene and notices that most of the hunters are only E-ranked, realizing their limited strength. He spots Juhi among them, attempting to cast a spell but becoming unsettled due to her memories from the dungeon. Jinwoo recognizes that she hasn't yet recovered from the trauma. Seeing they are up against a D-ranked boss, weaker than the one he recently defeated, Jinwoo decides to lend them a hand. The hunters are on the brink of defeat, so Jinwoo does the unthinkable. He chucks his sword with Hulk-level strength, hitting the golem square in the ugly face, creating an opening for the other hunters who use the opportunity to take it out. One of them wonders how they were able to defeat it because their attacks weren't working, and he sees the sword on the ground. So, he inquires about it. A soldier points to Jinwoo, but he's nowhere to be found, and we see that he has already left the scene because he wasn't expecting his attack to have such an impact. The battle is finally over, and Juhee wonders if Jinwoo was the one who helped out. Time passes, and in the hospital, the nurses are all buzzing about Hunter Jinwoo. They comment on his ugly face but seriously ripped physique. Meanwhile, in Jinwoo's room, he's diligently working out, unaware of the gossip. These thirsty nurses just can't stop talking about his transformation. Then, one fateful moment occurs. A nurse walks in on Jinwoo post-workout, and she's mesmerized by his sculpted muscles. Today is Jinwoo's discharge day, and seizing the moment, the nurse boldly asks for his big long number. Jinwoo, still not quite grasping his newfound appeal, assumes the nurse just wants to send him test results after his release. But the reality is something different. The horny nurse wants Jinwoo to destroy the out of her. Then we meet the S-rank Hunter Beck, who is invited as a special guest on a TV show. The interviewer asks him how many girls he can destroy in one day, so he tells her that he's always training because he doesn't want his destroying pussy skills to get rusty. He shares that he used to work as a firefighter, so he knows how to handle the fired up pussies.
Sensational.
Gina, watching the interview, wonders he must have a big level, but suddenly she realizes she's running late. Jinwoo, noticing her hurry, advises her to be careful on her way to school. She notices he looks different, attributing it to his training, and as she's about to rush off, he hands her his big long umbrella, telling her to stay safe. After Gina leaves, Jinwoo checks his daily quest and notices he's gained some muscle mass, attributing it to his increased stats. Realizing he hasn't yet allocated his ability points, he figures he needs more than just brute strength to take on tough monsters. So, he decides to boost his agility and perception. Just then, he gets a call from his landlord reminding his poor ass to pay the due rent. Jinwoo assures him he'll pay right away. Feeling stronger, he considers making more money by raiding dungeons, but there's a snag. His rank is still at E. He contemplates getting reevaluated to raise his rank and earn more cash. However, he's hesitant because it would draw too much attention, especially since his situation is quite unusual. Ultimately, he decides against it. Jinwoo is pleasantly shocked to stumble upon a high-paying gig for low-level hunters. Excitedly, he hurries to the location to complete his daily quest. On the way, he runs into a hunter named Dong-suk, and Dong-suk's friend sees Jinwoo's ugly face and recognizes him as the biggest coward with an ugly face, who is the weakest hunter in the world and gets clapped in every dungeon. Dong-suk awkwardly apologizes for his buddies recognizing Jinwoo as the weakest hunter to ever exist, to which Jinwoo cheekily admits they're not entirely wrong, as he is ugly as f***. Curious about the job, Jinwoo learns from Dong-suk that their party is short by 2 members to enter the C-rank dungeon. They're on the hunt for hunters to fill those slots, hence the hiring spree. Dong-suk explains that Jinwoo won't have to fight the monsters but will still get a hefty cut of the loot. Jinwoo, seeing a fat paycheck in his future, gladly accepts. Then comes the not-so-glamorous part, carrying their luggage. He can't help but wonder why they don't have a healer. Dong-suk casually mentions they're used to playing without one, because they are though not like Jinwoo, who ass is kicked even in E-rank dungeons. Then Jinwoo reads through the contract, finding out they won't be responsible for anything that might happen to him inside the dungeon. Despite the slight red flag, he signs it anyway. Then enters Jinho, a D-ranked hunter who also took the job. Everyone is impressed with his gear, assuming he must come from a loaded family. They all gear up to enter the gate, marveling at its size. But Jinwoo, who has the smallest in the world, being the savvy one, explains that gate size doesn't matter. It's all about the magical power it radiates, according to the Hunter Association. Entering the gate, they find the dungeon pitch dark. The mage comes to the rescue with a light spell, illuminating the dungeon. But Jinwoo notes that it reminds him of the temple because it's pitch black and there are no monsters blocking their path. As they venture further, they start hearing the ominous scuttle of approaching monsters. Panic ensues as they realize they're surrounded by openings, unsure where the baddies will pop out from. Jinwoo, playing the seasoned veteran, takes a look around and predicts the ants will drop in from above. This advance warning allows them to prepare, and they engage the ants in battle. Observing the chaos, Jinwoo notices that Jinho might be lacking in brute strength, but his fancy gear makes up for it. Everyone seems to be handling the ants well, but Jinwoo can't help but feel a bit miffed. The job is turning out to be a walk in the park, and he's starting to suspect something fishy. After their ant-squishing victory, they start scavenging for magic gems like it's a pixelated treasure hunt. Dong-suk, baffled by Jinwoo's anticipation skills, asks how he knew where the ants would drop in from. Jinwoo, ever the nonchalant hero, chalks it up to just a gut feeling. Mage notices some bite marks on the ants, hinting they might have tangled with a beefy monster. Jinho, in his newfound monster-slaying glory, proudly boasts that this is his maiden voyage into the world of monster mashing, thanks to Daddy's loaded pockets buying him fancy gear. Jinwoo, however, interrupts his victory lap with a cautious reminder to stay on his toes. He's got a spidey sense tingling that things might take a turn for the worse. At the White Tiger Guild, the hunters are hitting the gym when suddenly, boom, there's an explosion. But hey, no biggie, they're used to it. Turns out, it's just their guild master, Beck, casually blasting a massive hole into a boulder. He shrugs it off like it's a mere warm-up and tells his crew to clean up the mess. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo is still the designated luggage carrier for the squad. He's getting some serious shady vibes from Dong-suk's crew. I mean, no healer? That's like going into battle without bringing your lucky socks. Along the way, they spot some beat-up ants, a sure sign the big boss is lurking nearby. As they venture deeper, they stumble upon a jackpot of mana crystals, thinking they're going to be rich. Jinho takes a peek at Jinwoo's contract and discovers a gem of information. Those shiny crystals they found don't count as loot, which means Jinwoo should get a cut of the crystal action. Dong-suk agrees, but drops a bombshell. The crystals are under the boss's protection, and once they take down the boss, the dungeon shuts down. So, the genius plan? Mine those crystals while the boss is catching some sleep. There's just one little hitch. They left their mining gear outside. Now they need to bounce out of the dungeon to grab their tools. Jinho and Jinwoo are left behind while the others dash out. Dong-suk orders Mage to block the exit with magic to prevent anyone from entering. Using an explosive spell, Mage seals the entrance, trapping Jinho and Jinwoo inside. As Jinwoo's realization sinks in, he remembers Song Chi's warning about the sketchy side of dungeon raids. Turns out, getting murdered in a dungeon isn't exactly a rare occurrence. Betrayal, mining mishaps, and exploding entrances. Just another day in the life of a dungeon raid gone wrong. Jinho is in full-blown guilt mode, blaming himself for blabbing about the contract. But Jinwoo sees right through Dong-suk's crew. They were planning this betrayal fiesta from the get-go. Then, a big, fat spider comes in, and Jinho pledges to protect Jinwoo, who's sizing up this 8-legged nightmare. This spider is stronger than all the bosses Jinwoo's kicked to the curb so far. He's feeling outmatched, but then he remembers his showdown with the statue of God. Compared to that, this spider is like a wimpy house pet. So, with classic hero bravado, Jinwoo tells Jinho to step aside as he preps to tangle with this boss. Jinho is thinking that Jinwoo is toast because, well, he's just an ugly-looking, lowly E-rank hunter. Jinwoo refuses to give up, convinced he has the strength to defeat the spider. On the other side, Dong's crew stumbles out of the dungeon, scratching their heads over why they didn't just squash Jinwoo and Jinho themselves. Dong-suk, the brains of the operation apparently, explains that they couldn't risk the spider waking up and ruining their crystal harvesting party. He's all in on this plan, convinced that a total newbie and the weakest hunter ever are no match for an oversized arachnid. Their genius strategy is to wait for the spider to chow down on the helpless duo, so the spider can catch some sleep. They can't go in guns blazing since that had just roused the spider, but Hung's got a nifty trick up his sleeve, a sneaky little path above the cave. The worst case scenario would be the spider doesn't hit the snooze button after its meal. But no worries, they will at least steal Jinho's gear, which is apparently worth more than a vault full of gold coins. Dong-suk and the mage are on board, knowing they're no match for the 8-legged menace themselves. Dong-suk is quick to remind them, don't underestimate the spider. It's a beastly boss, and he's pretty confident that Jinwoo and Jinho are goners in there. Jinho's trying to talk some sense into Jinwoo, warning him that even a B-rank hunter would have trouble with this C-rank dungeon boss. Heck, even a top-notch C-ranker would be sweating bullets. They might as well start looking for the exit, right? Jinwoo ponders over his newfound strength, despite still feeling like the weakest link. Sure, he's had a second awakening and leveled up, but compared to the Venom and Golem bosses who were mere D-ranks, this spider boss is in a league of its own. Yet, Jinwoo's not sweating it. For some reason, he's feeling oddly chill. Maybe he's just become so strong that C-rank bosses don't scare him anymore. At level 18, he boldly declares he's got a shot at taking this spider down. With a burst of speed that surprises even Jinho, Jinwoo charges in for the attack. Meanwhile, we switch scenes to Grandpa lamenting to Jin Chul about his exhausting meetings. Jin Chul, being the pal he is, suggests a sparring session to blow off some steam. Grandpa agrees, admitting he's past his prime. But once they start throwing punches, Jin-chul finds himself struggling to land a hit. Before he knows it, Grandpa delivers a knockout blow, securing his victory in the match. Jin-chul showers Grandpa with thanks, marveling at how strong he is, especially for his age. Grandpa graciously accepts the praise, noting that Jin-chul's moves have definitely improved. He offers some sage advice, reminding Jin-chul not to slack off on training because it might just save his skin in sticky situations. Back to the action with Jin-woo. He's in a bit of a pickle trying to chop down the spider's legs. Turns out, its armor is tougher than Grandma's burnt toast, and its attacks pack a punch that could send him to the other world if he is hit by any of his attacks. Jin-ho, on the sidelines, is bewildered at Jin-woo's lightning-fast moves. He suspects Jin-woo might be intentionally holding back his power to lower his rank. But then, a chilling thought hits Jin-ho. Only a few hunters can pull this off, and they're usually the type who find joy in a good old-fashioned monster squishing. Meanwhile, Jin-woo's feeling the burn, not just from the spider's attacks but also from the fatigue setting in. He knows if he slows down, it's game over. So, with a plan forming in his mind, he remembers the special abilities of his trusty dagger. Eyeing the spider's head, he zeroes in on what he thinks is its weak spot. With a battle cry that's a mix of determination and panic, he charges in, only to be met with a face full of spider acid. He dodges that, but Jin-woo's not giving up that easily. He whips out his dash skill, zipping around like a turtle facing a bunny. Jin-woo relentlessly attacks the spider's head, but it's as effective as tickling a rock. Jin-woo's not one to let a stubborn spider ruin his day. He keeps on hacking and slashing, like a gamer on their last life against the final boss. But at last, the exhaustion hits him like a sack of potatoes, and he face plants into the dungeon floor. Just when it looks like Spider Uncle is about to deliver the final smash, Jin-woo pulls out his ultimate move, the full recovery dance. Dodging the spider's impending squish, he goes in for the surprise poke, aiming straight for its eight-eyed face. The dagger's magic kicks in, paralyzing the spider and sucking its health like a vampire with a sweet tooth. Jin-woo goes ham with his attacks, and the spider finally crashes to the ground and the system announces that the boss is toast. Jin-ho, astonished by Jin-woo's prowess, he tells Jin-woo to chill while he gets to work on those sweet crystals. Just then, Dong's team crashes the party, realizing they're late to the boss fight. Dong-suk and his crew think that Jin-ho is the spider slayer, and Dong-suk tells him to eliminate Jin-woo, saying they'll let him live if he obeys them, but he refuses, preparing to fight them. So, they start approaching him, but before the punches start flying, Jin-woo gets a notification straight from the system. Eliminate them. He's like, wait, what? Jin-woo's confused, but before he can say system error, Mage blasts him with some magic, sending him flying. Meanwhile, in the world of casual hunter chit-chat, Hagen and her friends are gossiping about the latest dungeon escapades. One friend tells the story of how he went into this A-rank dungeon for some training and bam, Cha comes in and cuts every monster like they are vegetables. They chat about how being in big guilds is like having a free pass in a theme park. Then the conversation takes a dark turn as they talk about a rumor of some unlucky people dying in dungeons due to unreasonable reasons. Back in the dungeon, Jin-ho's jaws drop thinking Jin-woo's a goner. Little do they know, our hero's still kicking, literally. Jin-woo reflects on the harsh reality of their world, where only the strong survive, wondering how he could have forgotten this. Despite nearing unconsciousness, he realizes that the system is urging him to fight for survival and tell him to end the bad guys or his heart will be stopped. With a dramatic flair, Jin-woo rises from what seemed like certain defeat, shocking everyone. He understands the importance of strength in a world where the weak are vulnerable to losing everything. Though labeled the weakest hunter, Jin-woo challenges them to face the consequences, emitting an ominous aura. Dong-suk's companion approaches him, reminding him that he's just an E-rank hunter. Next thing you know, Jin-woo does a dramatic head slice move. Everyone's jaws drop, wondering when he pulled out the dagger, and Jin-woo himself is aware that he just committed murder. However, he rationalizes that it was to save his own life. Dong-suk's crew isn't too happy about their buddy's impromptu decapitation, so they go full-on attack mode. But our boy Jin-woo is in the zone, dodging and slicing like he's in a deadly dance-off. Mage tries to zap him, but Jin-woo pulls a Houdini and reappears with a swift counterattack, defeating Mage instantly. Dong-suk's losing it, realizing Jin-woo's been hiding a whole arsenal of skills up his sleeve. Jin-woo confidently asserts his superiority over Dong-suk's companions, using his skills to bolster his own abilities. Dong-suk believes that Jin-woo relies on his speed and dagger for damage, but he knows it won't work against him due to his steel-like body. Despite this, he charges in to avenge his companions, but Jinwoo easily overwhelms him, smashing him to the ground. Realizing he's in deep trouble, the guy starts begging for mercy, offering up the precious crystals like they're candy. But Jin was not in a forgiving mood. He reminds him how Dong-suk's crew tried to off him multiple times, and that this dungeon's like Vegas. What happens here stays here. In a final slice of dramatic flair, Jinwoo lops the guy's head off, ticking off that urgent quest checkbox. The dungeon starts collapsing like a bad Jenga tower, but our crew manages to escape in the nick of time. They report back that Dong-suk's team met an unfortunate end in the dungeon due to some spidey problem. The official is giving them the side eye, especially since they were the scrappiest crew in the dungeon, but she gets distracted by Jinho's gear. Jinwoo's still in shock that he got rewarded for basically turning Dong-suk's crew into spider food. And get this, he's got this new skill called Murderous Intent, which basically freaks out enemies and cuts all their abilities in half. The simple-minded official concludes that Jinho survived cause of his flashy gear, while Jinwoo, the E-rank ugly-faced nobody, must have hidden behind a rock or something. Jinho praises Jinwoo on a job well done, and then it starts raining. Jinho wonders if something is wrong, but the very calm Jinwoo explains that he's just glad that he gave his sister an umbrella, and later tonight he's gonna give her the long heart. Elsewhere, Jincho gets a report about the incident and raises an eyebrow when he sees Jinwoo's name. Flipping through the file, he recognizes Dong-suk, who just happens to be the brother of a famous hunter. Meanwhile, Jinwoo comes home with the bacon, but his stepsister wants to eat his meat. While she eats Jinwoo's meat, she asks how his raid went, but Jinwoo's mind wanders back to the moment he killed those hunters without a second thought. He's briefly worried that he's too good at this killing thing, but his sister snaps out his Oni-chan from his dark thoughts. He decides to focus on beefing up to protect his sexy sister and coma mom. He cracks open a cold one, drinks it, and gets a notification about a debuff, but it quickly vanishes. Then he stands to go to his room, leaving all the remaining food for his sister, and advises her not to get fat like a pig. In his room, he keeps drinking, trying to catch a buzz, but realizes he can't get drunk. Thanks to one of his quest rewards, he's got regeneration and immunity to status effects. Talk about a buzzkill. Jinwoo gets a call from Jinho, and they meet up at a cafe. Jinho, seeing Jinwoo as his daddy, starts pitching an idea for a new team. Jinwoo instantly turns him down. As Jinwoo's about to make his exit, Jinho practically gets on his knees, begging him to hear him out. Jinho explains he's trying to get his guild master license, but it requires 20 raids worth of experience. His dad, who owns one of the biggest construction companies in the country, wants to form a guild. Jinwoo thinks about all the treasures that can be found in the dungeons, so he isn't surprised by their plan. Jinho mentions that his daddy wants an S-rank hunter to lead the guild with Jinho's brother as second in command. Jinwoo points out that there are only 7 S-rank hunters in the whole country, and they're all already taken except for one retired guy. Jinwoo warns him that poaching hunters from other guilds is like trying to get inside the pants of your girlfriend's mom. Jinho then reveals his brother can't be the guild master because he didn't awaken as a hunter, so now it's Jinho's chance to take his place. Jinho pitches how they can scratch each other's butts. Jinwoo can join raids while keeping his true power on the down low, and Jinho can convince Daddy Dearest of his success. Jinho even dangles a $20 million building as the future guild HQ as bait, offering it in exchange for Jinwoo's help on 19 more raids. Jinwoo mulls it over but figures that once he levels up to S rank, $20 million will be pocket change, so he politely tells Jinho to stuff it. Meanwhile, in the United States, we meet Dong-suk's brother, Dong-soo. When he hears about his brother's murder, he's ready to play detective. He looks at the info on the 2 survivors and plans a trip to Korea. His assistant, though, reminds him his schedule's packed. He agrees to wait, but hopes those 2 stay alive until he's free to spank their asses with his dick. The next day, Jinwoo is out for a jog with his sister because she can't be a fat chick. I mean, she is getting fat or something. He asks her what she'd do if she had $20 million, and she laughs it off as a pipe dream. And Jinwoo thinks about putting his pipe inside her. She also said she would close her OnlyFans, and Jinwoo asked what is OnlyFans, and she explained to come late in the night to his room, and she said she would explain to him with a live example.
I don't like where this is going.
Jinwoo goes to complete his daily quest and realizes he can overshoot his requirement. Testing the limit, he doubles it, triggering a secret quest and earning a blessed loot box. Inside is another key, this one leading to the demon's castle, an S-rank dungeon. He's gobsmacked to see it contains ingredients for the elixir of life. thinking it could save his mom. Later that day, he goes to the dungeon and opens the gate, revealing a fiery portal, and wonders if he's really ready to tackle an S-rank dungeon. But we see he saved a teleportation stone just in case. As he steps in, a Cerberus appears to greet him, but Jinwoo's got one thing on his mind: getting stronger. Jinwoo goes into beast mode, using his dash to get close and personal with the Cerberus, slicing and dicing, but it's like trying to cut through a rock with a butter knife. He tries to give the beast a taste of his murderous intent, but it has no effect. Paralysis and drain also have no effect. Then, the Cerberus takes a big bite out of his arm, costing him a chunk of his HP. He gets back up, but the beast buffs itself, doubling its stats. Jinwoo gets pounded continuously, and his health takes a nosedive. As if things weren't bad enough, the Cerberus activates its 3-minute rage mode, doubling its power. Its attacks come faster than a teenager's first time, leaving Jinwoo with no choice but to use his full recovery reward to regrow his arm. Just when he thinks he's getting somewhere, he's wrong. He keeps getting tossed around like a ragdoll. With his HP plummeting, he buys a moment by kicking dirt at the beast. Jinwoo goes for his teleportation stone, but he drops it when the Cerberus strikes again. Desperate, he decides to try the snake's poison, remembering his debuff immunity, which works. The Cerberus lunges and takes another bite, but Jinwoo survives. He declares he can still move, and just then, the beast's rage timer runs out. Jinwoo rushes in, finally landing some real hits. The Cerberus almost makes a meal of him, but he just manages to stop it. Going airborne, the beast slams him back into the ground, near the brink, with his health bar almost empty and the Cerberus's teeth closing in. Jinwoo digs deep. He stabs the beast repeatedly, even as it thrashes him around. With one final, all-out attack, he kills the beast. He levels up, healing himself, and breathes a sigh of relief. His reward is another key to the demon's castle and the formula for the elixir of life, which requires 3 items from within the castle. Jinwoo knows he needs to beef up before tackling that challenge, but he's determined to return soon. Afterward, Jinwoo goes to visit his mom and wonders if he can really cure her eternal sleep disease. He's missing the 3 magic ingredients for the elixir of life, but at least he knows where to find them. Trying to enter the castle at his current level would be like a mouse taking on a lion. So, he needs to level up and get stronger. He meets up with Jinho and announces he's had a change of heart and will join the raids, but only if they can raid the dungeons alone. Jinho is shocked, wondering if Jin was going to him inside the dungeon. He reminds him they need 8 people to enter C-rank dungeons. Jinwoo suggests they can hire warm bodies to meet the quota. Jinho thinks it's too risky, but Jinwoo insists they can clear dungeons without any casualties, and that Jinho's dad will be blown away by their success. Jinho understands Jinwoo's point and decides to look for members to join them. Meanwhile, we see Cha in the middle of her sexy training session. While she's resting, she calls out to someone stalking her milkers. Then enters Yoon, who introduces himself. He invites her to be his mommy milkers. Guild master of Jinho's guild, hoping she can bring some serious milkers.
Oh my.
Muscle to the operation. Elsewhere, Jinho's father drops some truth bombs, explaining how the world has been flipped upside down just like the 69 position since dungeons appeared. He jokes that without those dungeon resources, we'd all be living in tents. Hunters are the only ones who can fetch these resources, and they're controlled by the state-owned association. But the real moneymakers are the guilds. They're rolling in cash from the hunters' hard work. He mentions the top guilds are as loaded as a stripper on payday and wants to start his own guild, thinking it will benefit everyone. Meanwhile, Jinwoo wraps up his daily quests and realizes he can't exceed his requirements anymore, so no more blessed loot boxes. Hoping for something to boost his strength, he opens a regular loot box and gets a bingo card. Feeling like he's been handed a condom in a monastery, he decides daily quests aren't cutting it. He wants to slay monsters to level up and considers taking on the centipede in the penalty zone, unsure if it'll give him any XP. Just then, Jinwoo gets a notification to join a D-rank dungeon. He jumps at the chance, thinking it's better than grinding daily quests. But frustration sets in as he realizes his progress has slowed very much. We then cut to a dojo where Songchi is training his students, and he also receives an emergency summon from the Hunters Association. His student asks if he's planning to retire since he lost an arm, but Songchi, with an ugly smile, says he still has another arm and wants to keep contributing to society, implying he's got plenty of fight and body part left in him. One less arm is not a problem. Then we see Coward Kim hanging hanging out with his family when he gets an emergency summon. His wife, channeling her inner drama queen, begs him to quit being a hunter, reminding him he almost bit the dust in the last raid. But Kim, trying to sound like a hero, says they need the money and assures her he'll be fine. Over at the Hunters Guild, Choi is having a chat with Beck. And Beck is annoyed because Choi set up an interview for him at the association, which Beck thinks was a total waste of time, telling Choi that he should have attended it instead. Choi says he isn't qualified because he's not as charming as Beck. Then he spills the beans about Yujin Construction starting his own guild. Beck already knows and asks why Choi wanted to see him. Meanwhile, Juhee gets a call from her mom, who's worried and nagging her to quit being a hunter because she appears to be having issues. She snaps at her mother to stop running her life and hangs up. She starts doubting herself but decides to keep pushing forward. Just then we see that she received an emergency summon. Cha walks up to Choi and tells him she was invited to be the guild master of Jinho's guild but turned it down. Choi, trying not to look too pleased, says he's happy to hear that. She mentions seeing Beck on her way in and wonders what the that small guy is up to. Before Cha's entry, Choi spills the beans to Beck about Jeju Island, revealing it's been sealed off after their raid went south. Everyone's trying to forget it, but Choi just can't let it go. Beck shrugs it off, but Choi's fired up, insisting he can't forget the disaster. He asks Beck to help him round up some allies, hinting that Beck might have lost something precious in the raid too. Beck recalls how they got overwhelmed, resulting in his friends' deaths, and those memories still haunt him. At Jinwoo's place, Gina is shocked at how busy he's been. The old Jinwoo would need weeks to recover after each gate, so she wonders if he's taking something big in his ass or something, and she also wants to take his long and hard training with him. Jinwoo tells her to wait, he will give her a good training session later. Then he heads off to a mission so casually that Gina thinks he's just going out to buy a condom at the store. Meanwhile, Songchi is wandering around, musing about his magical powers, thinking they don't suit him because he's more of a sword guy. He bumps into Jinwoo and notices his leg is miraculously healed. He explains that his leg was already healed when he woke up. Songchi suspects a high-ranked healer took care of it. He's happy to see Jinwoo, but when Jinwoo notices that Songchi still hasn't grown back his arm, he can't help but feel a bit down. But Songchi tells him it's okay, reassuring him with an ugly smile. They realize they'll be working together and head towards the portal, where they spot Juhee, Jinwoo's and Kim alongside another man from their previous raid. Juhee is happy to see them, but the men fall silent, guilt-ridden for sacrificing Jinwoo to save themselves. Juhee notices Jinwoo looks tall and wonders if any other body part has also gotten tall.
You're teasing me! Naughty, naughty!
Suddenly, some sketchy dudes show up, and they instantly take a liking to Juhee's massive cannons. Then a guy named King steps in, telling them to f*** off. This little explains these guys were sent by the association to clear the dungeons since there aren't enough hunters around. She assures everyone they'll behave because B-rank Hunter King will keep them in line, hinting that he can handle them if they get out of hand. Jinwoo smells trouble and tells Juhee to sit this one out, but she insists on joining because she wants to stay with him. King removes the convicts' restraints, but warns them that any funny business will get them a one-way ticket to the afterlife. He then wonders who's got the pleasure of playing raid leader. Jinwoo volunteers Songchi for the job. Grateful for the trust, Songchi thanks Jinwoo by bending and offering his old f***ed-up ass, still feeling guilty for the last raid's disaster. He admits they only survived because of Jinwoo's heroics. After the heartfelt thanks, they all march into the portal, ready to tackle whatever monster mess awaits them. Inside the dungeon, the gang gets jumped by goblins, but the convicts handle them so easily that Songchi starts to wonder if the real monsters are on his team. Jinwoo also makes quick work of the goblins, and Songchi can't help but admire Jinwoo's impressive new dagger. Juhee points out that she hasn't even had to heal his ugly face once. Songchi senses Jinwoo's transformation. As they explore further, they come to a fork in the road. Kang suggests splitting up, taking the convicts down one path, but telling everyone to regroup if they find the boss room. Jinwoo, with his keen perception, identifies the boss's path. Knowing the goblins won't give him much XP, he tells Songchi to take the left path. Kim and another guy take the middle, and they all split up. Jinwoo notices King keeping an eye on him, and Jinwoo thinks King must be the guy who swings both ways. Kim takes out a goblin and feels pretty confident, since they're so weak. The other guy hopes things stay easy, but Kim reasons that since they let the weakest hunter, Jinwoo, join, the dungeon must be low level. But the guy reminds him Jinwoo was in the last dungeon too. Kim, feeling guilty about abandoning Jinwoo before, decides he'll apologize after this mission. Meanwhile, King and the convicts are getting bored since the goblins are no challenge. Flashback to King talking to a man who's furious that the 3 convicts abused his daughter, leading her to take her own life. He laments that hunters get reduced sentences for participating in dungeon raids and offers King money to take care of the convicts in the dungeon, saying no one outside would know. Back in the present, King tells the convicts he's going to report they died in a goblin attack. He takes them down easily and prepares to torture them when Kim walks in on him. King realizes the paths are connected and that the boss is down the left path, so he quickly finishes off the convict. Meanwhile, Jinwoo remembers meeting King at the hospital, hoping King doesn't recognize him. Suddenly, he hears a scream. They rush back to find the convicts, with Kim's companion down and Kim in terrible condition. Juhee rushes to heal him, and Song-chi can tell he was attacked with a blade. Kim thinks he's a goner, but Jinwoo reminds him about his family, urging him to survive so he can keep holding his grudge. Kim, in his last moments, wishes he could apologize under better circumstances, but manages to say he's sorry before he fades away. King, watching from above, tries to eliminate Juhee, but Jinwoo stops his attack. King is impressed, but Song-chi wonders why someone from the association would do something like this. Song-chi is shocked since King is part of the Hunter Association, but King just wants to spill his villainous plan. Instead of blaming the goblins, King will say that the prisoners took out all the other hunters. He'll then claim they tried to take him out, but he survived, making him the lone hero. Song-chi steps up, ready to fight King, thinking Jinwoo isn't strong enough yet, and he asks Juhee to buff him. Despite King being a higher rank, Song-chi knows assassins usually have low defense. King laughs, mocking Song-chi for being a mage who uses a sword but admits he has some skill. However, when Song-chi takes a hit, Juhee instantly heals him, annoying King, who thinks he needs to take her out first. King rushes at Juhee, but Song-chi blocks him, boasting that he won't lose in swordsmanship. However, King's speed is too much, and Song-chi gets sliced from all sides. Juhee tries to heal him but runs out of juice, leaving King thinking it's game over. Suddenly, Song-chi unleashes a fire blast, but King dodges and complements his clever distraction with the sword. Just as he's about to finish Song-chi off, Jinwoo pushes him back. King, puzzled, asks Jinwoo who he is. Jinwoo introduces himself as just an E-rank hunter. King isn't buying it, noting that Jinwoo blocked 2 of his attacks, suspecting a second awakening. Song-chi realizes it must have been the double dungeon, and King finally recognizes Jinwoo. Jinwoo demands to know why King did all this. King explains he was hired by a grieving father to carry out justice by killing the convicts. Jinwoo calls out his lie, pointing out that Kim was tortured, not just silenced. We flash back to King's conversation with the father, where he accepts the job but admits he enjoys killing people more than monsters, despite being a top hunter every guild wants. King and Jinwoo engage in a fierce battle. Song-chi watches in disbelief as they move at lightning speed. Despite their equal speed, King believes his experience gives him an edge. He kicks dirt into Jinwoo's eyes and lands multiple slashes. Just then, Jinwoo's system activates, giving him a quest to defeat King. Jinwoo gathers his power, channeling his inner Goku. Suddenly, he becomes even faster. King gets hit by Jinwoo's dagger, feeling the sting of its poison, but then decides to pull a disappearing act with his stealth skill. Jinwoo tries to locate him, but King smugly notes that his stealth is like an invisibility cloak. Jinwoo braces himself, but still gets a nasty cut on his leg, with King bragging that no one has ever survived seeing his skill. King thinks he's got the upper hand now that Jinwoo's leg is sliced, but Jinwoo surprises him by using full recovery to heal instantly. King is baffled, wondering how a combat hunter can also heal. He starts seeing Jinwoo as a real threat. King vanishes again, but Jinwoo, sensing his bloodlust, blocks his attacks. King prepares one last trick, but Jinwoo activates his murderous intent skill, plunging everything into darkness. In a flash, Jinwoo's blade pierces King's chest, defeating him instantly. Jinwoo completes his quest and gains the stealth skill. King, gasping, asks what he is. Jinwoo says, "I am your father."
You are the father!
Jinwoo feels a mix of power and something unsettling growing inside him. Juhee and Song-chi thank him for saving them, and Jinwoo tells them to leave the dungeon while he finishes the job. As Jinwoo heads to take on the boss alone, he stumbles upon one of the prisoners still tied up. Jinwoo detected his presence before he even fought King, and it was confirmed when King himself mentioned he had left him there. Apparently, he was waiting to kill him in the most painful way possible. But before he could do that, Kim and the others showed up. This was the final thing King whispered before he died, and it was pretty much a message passing on his job to Jinwoo. The convict turned back to Jinwoo, asking if he was related to one of the victims. This confirmed his nasty habit of using his powers to hurt multiple women. Jinwoo had heard enough. After gagging the guy and dragging him away from the entrance, the prisoner realized what kind of party Jinwoo had in store for him. By the time they reached the boss room entrance, the once aggressive prisoner was now trembling in fear, practically swimming in his own piss. Why? Because the boss room wasn't just filled with weak goblins anymore. It was home to hobgoblins, the type that were known for their love of human meat. The criminal knew exactly what was coming. For Jinwoo, this was poetic justice. He watched as the prisoner got a first-class, one-way ticket to being devoured alive. With the gruesome appetizer out of the way, Jinwoo turned his focus to the main course, the boss, sitting alone on the other side of the room. As its minions enjoyed their meal, Jinwoo used his dash skill to appear right in front of the boss, and before it could even react, it had already lost its head. His plan of using the prisoner as bait had worked like a charm. The rest of the hobgoblins were dispatched just as easily, and by the time the bloodbath was over, Jinwoo had leveled up twice. Outside, Jinchul arrived on the scene, shocked to discover that Kang had been a secret serial killer. He blamed himself for being too careless as a supervisor. His assistant led him to the survivors, and Jinchul was stunned to see Jinwoo among them. He wondered who had defeated Kang, and Jinwoo could feel the tension, thinking he was about to be exposed. But then Songchi, out of nowhere, claims he was the one who took down Kang. Jinchul looks at him skeptically, wondering how someone of his rank could defeat Kang. Songchi explains it was all thanks to this massive milker healer by his side.
Yeah, boy.
Jinchul, still suspicious, decides to let it slide for now. Jinwoo, meanwhile, realizes he can't get too cocky just because he defeated Kang. He can sense that Jinchul is A rank and knows he wouldn't stand a chance against him. Songchi apologizes for stepping in but believes Jinwoo has a good reason for hiding his true strength. He says this is his way of paying Jinwoo back for saving his life. After some time later, Jinwoo meets Juhee, and Juhee notices that Jinwoo has changed, but she still freaks out during missions, thinking she's not cut out to be a successful hunter. She remembers how she used to save his ugly ass in the past during missions, because his ugly ass always got hurt, and she reminds him about his promise to eat his meat. I mean to have dinner with her. She pulls out the essence stone he gave her and says she's retiring to help her parents with the family business by starting an OnlyFans. She tells him to visit her during his free time so she can record some videos for his OnlyFans with him.
What do you mean by that?
And hands back the stone as they say their goodbyes. Before leaving, Juhee says, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Since you guys will not be going to see her massive tits, I mean her personality, and they will only gonna see the ugly up face of Jinwoo. As he sees Juhee leaves, he thinks he's gonna destroy that later. Jinwoo remembers Jinchul's warning about Dong-suk's brother sniffing around. He knows Dong-soo is an S-rank hunter, and Jinchul mentioned that Dong-suk won't care about the facts. He'll be gunning for them because they were there when Dong-suk bit the dust. Jinchul explains that the law can't touch S-rank hunters because they're too powerful, advising Jinwoo to get the out of this country with his family. This makes Jinwoo realize he needs to get stronger to defend himself and his loved ones. After a while, Jinwoo and Jinho are gearing up to raid a C-rank dungeon. Jinho brags about assembling a strike team, but he picks the utterly useless hunters because, well, they're not meant to fight anyway. Jinwoo notices a miner in the group and decides to click her later, and then that miner named Songy approaches him, saying like and subscribe for more videos like this. She claims she's qualified to be a hunter. Turns out, she's an E-rank hunter with 0 raiding experience. Jinwoo tells her to go yourself or wait till night, and in the night he's gonna put his massive. Jinwoo tells the other hunters to hang out outside while he and Jinho tackle the dungeon. One hunter's like, seriously? Are we getting paid 3 million to do nothing? Jinho confirms, adding that if anyone spills the beans about their sweet deal, they'll owe him 10 times the amount. Jinho, decked out in new armor, boasts about using it for the raid. Jinwoo pokes him, and Jinho crashes to the ground. Jinwoo tells him to ditch the armor since he can't even move in it. They step into the gate, and the ugly useless hunters think they've lost their minds. Low-rank hunters clear clearing a dungeon? Yeah, right. But an hour later, Jinho walks out of the gate, and everyone realizes the dungeon is cleared. They're flabbergasted, wondering how they beat the boss. Then, Jinho drops another bombshell. They're planning to clear 3 dungeons in one day, and everyone's going to earn a cool 9 million in total. Jinwoo slices through monsters like they're butter, leveling up with every swing. Jinho notices Jinwoo flexing new skills, especially stealth, which lets him fight invisibly. A real peekaboo in the heat of battle. Jinho grabs the loot while Jinwoo realizes he's running low on mana. So, he contemplates boosting his intellect, then gets a notification. He's hit the required level and can now take on the job change quest. Over at the White Tiger Guild, the manager, Sang, learns someone dropped a whopping 150 million for C-rank Gates rights. His assistant spills the beans about Jinho's strike team, mentioning Jinho's rich daddy, but Sang thinks the kid's nuts. When he digs into the team's roster and sees Jinwoo, he's intrigued. Sang suspects Jinwoo has reawakened since he survived 3 major disasters that killed other hunters. Clearly, Jinwoo's packing some serious heat. Sang tracks down Jinho's group and is puzzled to see them picnicking. Songy approaches, telling him the area is off limits. Sang, playing the curious cat, asks if she's part of the team and wonders where Jinwoo is. Realizing Jinwoo's solo clearing the dungeon, Sang figures the guy must be a beast and decides to leave. Moments later, Jinwoo comes out of the gate, asking Jinho for a day off to handle some personal business. Jinho points out they still need to clear the dungeons he booked, and canceling would mean no refund. Meanwhile, Choi's having a Jeju Island raid nightmare again, gearing up to implement his plan. Back to Jinwoo, he meets Sang outside of a cafe, and they go inside to have a drink. Sang, from the White Tiger Guild, tries to recruit Jinwoo, offering double what Jinho is paying. Jinwoo, curious about the White Tiger's worth, learns it's close to 50 billion. Jinwoo laughs, saying they can't afford him since Jinho promised him a building worth 30 billion. Surprised, Sang watches Jinwoo get up to leave but then freaks out when Jinwoo vanishes and slices his cheek. Sang realizes Jinwoo's using stealth and quickly apologizes for snooping. Sang explains he found Jinwoo's name while researching the dungeon market. The guild needs C-rank dungeons for training rookies, but Jinho has bought them all. Sang swears he and his assistant are the only ones who know about Jinwoo and promise to keep quiet, fearing for his life. Jinwoo spares him, saying his team needs to control the C-rank gates for their goal. He offers to sell 3 gates for 900 million, but Sang haggles him down to 600 million, and Jinwoo agrees with the prices. Before they part ways, Jinwoo tells Sang to open wide and pops his cream into his mouth, containing a healing potion. Sang asks if this means Jinwoo trusts him, but Jinwoo just tells him to keep his mouth shut. Back at home, Jinho informs Jinwoo that they've received the 600 million from Sang, curious about how Jinwoo managed to sell the dungeons at such an inflated price. Jinwoo keeps it a secret, while Sang, in his office, realizes he has been scammed, because C-rank dungeons are going for less than half the price. Sang gets a message from Jinwoo, saying he'll forget about Sang's spying. Sang breathes a sigh of relief, knowing his ass is now safe. Then, Jinwoo leaves the city and heads into the forest, ready to tackle his job change quest. He knows it's going to be tough but accepts it anyway. He chooses yes in his system notification, and a portal appears. Stepping through, he wonders what kind of nightmare awaits him. The dungeon seems too peaceful, which is never a good sign. The system warns him that he can't heal while inside and can't leave until the dungeon is cleared. A knight approaches, and Jinwoo draws his dagger, landing a hit that does nothing. He tries a critical hit, but his dagger is as effective as a spoon against the knight's armor. Frustrated, he goes hands-on and decapitates the knight in one swift move. Suddenly, a squad of knights shows up, ready to party. Meanwhile, Jinho is having dinner with his family. His brother is struggling to start a guild because he can't find an S-rank hunter, and is thinking about recruiting from overseas. He warns Jinho not to interfere, but Jinho keeps quiet, knowing his brother will flip when he learns about Jinwoo. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo uses brute force to mow down the knights, but starts feeling the burn. He senses something sneaky, whips out his weapon, and stabs an assassin with stealth skills. A mage attacks, but misses, and Jinwoo realizes the enemies are familiar, each with different weaknesses. He knows dealing with them is going to be tricky and decides he needs brain cells to deal with the mages. Jinwoo battles on, feeling his fatigue piling up like a bad hangover, but he still manages to defeat the enemies, snagging some drop armor in the process. Deciding to try it on, he discovers it's invisible and doesn't restrict his movements. With his energy restored, he ventures deeper into the dungeon, spotting a gigantic door. He opens it, bracing himself to meet the boss. Entering the throne room, He immediately senses a powerful presence as the Knight Commander, Igris, appears. Realizing it's stronger than anything he's faced before, Jinwoo braces for battle. Igris suddenly charges at him. Jinwoo dodges, but the attack shatters a pillar behind him. Igris swings again, and though Jinwoo tries to block, he's sent flying. Struggling to keep up, he finds his attacks are ineffective. Igris strikes back, overpowering Jinwoo and pushing him back. Jinwoo realizes he can match Igris's speed but not its strength, and his dagger is useless against its armor. He wonders how to win this fight. Deciding to ditch the dagger, he prepares to fight barehanded. To his surprise, Igris tosses its weapons aside, ready to brawl on equal terms. Meanwhile, Choi is gearing up with the other hunters for a trip to Jeju Island. Grandpa sits in his office as Jinchul arrives, informing him that Choi is on the move. Grandpa receives a call from Choi, who confirms his group is ready to head out. Thanking Grandpa for approving the mission, Grandpa reminds him that the public still remembers Jeju Island and urges him to be careful. Back in the dungeon, Igris isn't wasting any time and starts tossing Jinwoo around like he's a rag doll. He lands a flurry of punches, sending Jinwoo crashing through a wall. Despite blocking the blows, Jinwoo feels like he's lost 500 HP and is grateful for the armor. Otherwise, he'd be toast. Realizing speed is the key, Jinwoo activates his dash skill, zipping around Igris and finally managing to push him back. However, his subsequent attacks miss the mark, and Igris throws him around even more. Jinwoo notices that the skill also boosts his defense. The beating continues until Jinwoo lands a spectacular kick right on Igris's head. This only makes Igris angrier, and then Jinwoo gets pummeled, ending up on the throne with Igris looming over him. Exhausted, Jinwoo watches as Igris summons its sword, ready to finish him off. Refusing to give up, Jinwoo stops the sword, then blinds Igris with his dagger, stunning him. With all his strength, Jinwoo pushes Igris against the wall. Igris tries to use Jinwoo's dagger against him, but it vanishes back to Jinwoo's inventory. Equipping it again, Jinwoo targets Igris's neck, delivering a fatal blow with everything he has. The dagger pierces through it, killing Igris in an instant. Victorious, Jinwoo acknowledges his luck, noting Igris was the superior fighter. The system rewards him with an S-rank helmet and a rune stone for a new skill called the Ruler's Hand. He wonders why Igris dropped a teleportation stone, thinking he has already cleared the dungeon. But some portal suddenly appears and the system gives him a message to survive as long as possible. A timer starts, and countless knights flood the room. Jinwoo fights them off but quickly realizes he's outnumbered, using his stealth skill to hide, but a mage's spell exposes him. Just as he's about to get hit, he uses his murderous intent to stun the knights and take them down. Running low on mana, Jinwoo fights on, realizing only 5 minutes have passed. He considers using the teleportation stone, but a knight's attack causes him to drop it. He gets launched like a ragdoll and realizes that without his trusty teleportation stone, his only shot at survival is to keep fighting as the massive horde of enemies descends on him. He gives it his all against the knights, but he's running on fumes and can't use his skills. He's got just a sliver of HP left, but he refuses to throw in the towel and keeps swinging. Eventually, he hits his limit and drops to his knees. He sees his friends telling him he's done enough and envisions his old self, who would be amazed at how much taller and fitter he's become. But then his old self reminds him that these changes are just skin deep. Deep down, Jinwoo is still the weakest and on the brink of dying again. Jinwoo's other self taunts him, saying he might look different, but he's still just an ugly, lonely, poor, small mother sister small of an E-rank hunter, and he should know his place. As Jinwoo gets pounded into the ground and his enemy moves in for the final blow, he notices that his daily quest time is about to expire. Right on cue, he gets a penalty for not completing it, and is whisked away to the penalty zone just in the nick of time. When he lands in the penalty zone, Jinwoo is thankful for once that the penalty saved his bacon. He starts to wonder if it was pure luck, or if the system is secretly his guardian angel. He hits up the store to grab some stamina potions, but then he's surrounded by giant centipedes. Instead of freaking out, he charges at them like they f***ed his sexy sister behind his back, determined to level up. He wipes them out, racks up several levels, and still has 10 minutes to spare. Browsing the shop like he's on a shopping spree, he picks up the Night Killer Dagger, perfect for slicing through armored monsters. Next, he uses a rune stone from Igris and unlocks the Ruler's Hand skill, turning him into a Jedi who can move stuff with his mind. When his time runs out, he's zapped back to the dungeon, pumped for round 2. Back at home, Gina's wondering where Jinwoo is. She wonders if he might be clapping his new unknown girlfriend. Then she laughs it off, thinking it's impossible, because he has the smallest and she just hopes he doesn't forget her guardian teacher meeting. Meanwhile, Choi's group is gearing up for another Jeju Island raid. Cha feels bad for missing the last disaster, but before long, they sense some weird mana vibes coming from the water. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo is slashing through knights with his new dagger. But something feels off because he doesn't seem to be gaining any XP. Then he spots the mages casting a weird spell and realizes the knights are just summoned monsters. He throws his dagger at one of the mages, and boom, its summoned knights also vanish. Jinwoo keeps going after the mages, using his new skill to yoink one in and cutting it in half. But then the 3 remaining mages team up and summon a giant golem. Jinwoo ducks and weaves through its attacks and charges straight for the mages, finishing them with a powerful attack. But the golem tries to smash him, but Jinwoo pushes it back and destroys it. 4 hours later, he finishes the job change quest. Based on his stellar performance, he's offered an advanced class, Necromancer. He's confused since Necromancer are usually casters, and he hasn't invested any points in intellect. He thinks it's a terrible match for his fighting style, and tries to reject it. But the system tells him the Necromancer is a hidden class, so he reluctantly accepts. Thanks to his epic survival time and monster slaying spree, he racks up bonus points. His advancement points skyrocket, dark energy swirls around him, and his class upgrades to Shadow Monarch. With the job change complete, he hears the voices of the knights as he gains the ability to use shadow extraction on them. To activate it, he needs a command word, so he picks Arise, and the knights stand up again, now his minions. Besides shadow extraction, Jinwoo also gets a skill called Shadow Storage. Shadow extraction lets him use some of his mana to create shadow soldiers, and Shadow Storage allows him to stash those soldiers and summon them whenever he wants. The catch is the extraction can fail if the target is too strong or has been dead for too long. But Jinwoo's got bigger ambitions. He sets his sights on controlling Igris. He uses his extraction skill, feeling a surge of energy, but it fails. He goes for it again, and it fails a second time. Jinwoo figures Igris has been holding out for his king but asks him to serve him instead. On the final attempt, he nails it and turns Igris into one of his soldiers. In a dramatic moment, Igris and the entire Shadow army kneel before Jinwoo. He's blown away and declares they're all with him now. Meanwhile, the hunters carried the ant's body onto the ship they found in the water. Choi examines the red ants from the disastrous raid and makes a jaw-dropping discovery. The monsters are evolving. This ant has grown wings. And that's where the series ends for now. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.